So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, we're here for Eric with Erika. What is this? 18? I think it's 18.
We're getting up there in the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, we still have a long way to go until we rival Kent with Bent with its 75th episode recently, but yeah. This is...
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think I can rival Kent with Bent. Kent with Bent is a powerhouse.
It's an institution at this point.
It's an institution. You could even get some kind of like Patriot University style degree if you complete it.
Actually, I do have, every once in a while, every few weeks or so, I notice that, like, in sequence, all the Kent with Bents are getting one or two comments from the same person. It's like, oh,
they're running through the whole thing.
Yep, someone who is binging the entire thing. Good luck, buddy. Yeah, it's actually happening right now with someone who's relatively new to the channel. it's a trip to go back and, like, because every once in a while they'll put a little timestamp and then a comment, and then I click the timestamp to see what the context is, and I'm like, yikes, this brings me back. That was a thing.
You're like, oh yeah, how could I forget?
The answer is alcohol. That's how.
Beautiful.
Speaking of which, so we're here to talk about Eric Hovind talking about the age of the Earth, which for some reason he's going to talk about genetics first thing, because that's where we left off. But we have some drinking rules to go along with this. So let's go over the drinking rules real fast. So first, we drink whenever Eric says something that's just so stupid we have to, right? That happens a lot. But we'll also drink whenever he gets something correct that he isn't just quoting from someone else. So he has to actually get it right himself. Otherwise, no dice. We'll also drink whenever he tells a joke that doesn't land, or tells a story that we're pretty sure didn't happen, or we go all Godwin's Law. Also, we can predict something. So if Erika or I say, I think his next thing is going to be this, and if it is, then we'll take a drink.
That happens a lot, actually.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll also take drinks if there are a few things that... Well, one is if Godzilla or Mothra come by, we'll take a drink. And there are a couple ways for people in chat to get us to drink if you really want to. But because of how much I know that you guys would make us drink if it were just completely unrestricted, it has to be a super chat, and there's two options. If you're a channel member and you super chat anything that includes one of the three kaiju emojis, we'll take a drink for that. Or if you're anyone and you super chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks, we'll drink to that. And that is primarily because they like to copyright claim everything. They currently have one of my videos under copyright claim. In fact, you know what? Let's double check to see if it's still copyright claimed. Because what they like to do is just let the copyright claim expire. Yeah, it's just still. It's been over a week, or almost a week now. Sorry, almost a week since
They're
the
always
copyright.
pulling that shit.
Yeah. So because they're a bunch of dicks, we drink whenever anyone super chats that they're a bunch of dicks. Did I miss anything, Erika?
Hold on just a second.
Okay. I don't think I missed anything. If anyone in the chat thinks I missed anything, please let me know. But I'm seeing we've got...
Okay, apologies.
Oh, no worries.
my lovely fiance peeped in and is ordering dinner for the aftermath. My celebration for getting through another Eric with Erika, because Hovind the Younger is just so grating on my cognitive abilities that I almost need to recover. So we're ordering Mexican food. So I just had to get really excited about that. Did we cover, Dapper, the jokes rule? Because
Yes.
that is arguably, that's my favorite rule. I always like to
Okay.
touch on that one because I enjoy it so much.
Yep. Well, we definitely said if he tells a joke that doesn't land. And also, interestingly, you're getting Mexican food while I'm making nachos after this.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna make black bean and cheese nachos.
Yum. Yeah, I'm, have we said what we're drinking yet?
I'm just drinking vodka and cola because I'm a cheap bastard.
Well, I think I can actually outdo you. I didn't tell you this in the pre-show. I was saving the punchline for once we were here. I'm enjoying a glass of wine this evening, and it is, in fact, Barefoot brand wine. I received it as a very off-the-cuff Christmas gift from a friend who is more of an acquaintance. And because the storm recently hit where I live, that recent winter storm, I have absolutely no alcohol except for that. So I am drinking a Barefoot Cabernet. So
Well, be careful, because wine is a dangerous thing to drink with these.
I'm sipping, folks.
Okay.
I'm sipping.
All right, which that does remind me, guys, if you do want to play along, please do so responsibly. Be safe. Don't drink and drive or operate heavy machinery. And also, the Dapper Dino channel is saying, hey, this is at your own risk. I'm telling you, it's not necessarily safe, so I'm not taking responsibility or liability for any damages to property, any injuries to self or others, any crimes you may commit while under the influence of any drugs you may be partaking in. Yeah, no, that's not on me. You chose to do that.
We've made the joke before, and I'll make the joke again. Be careful even if you're drinking water. People have died before from overdosing on
That's
good
true.
old H2O. And this is the kind of thing that could lead to that if you're taking big gulps.
Yeah.
So
Gotta be careful. I mean, I'm pretty careful with my pacing. All right, well, here we go. Let's listen to Eric. So if people don't remember, we were just told by Eric that Heidelman or Heidelberg's dilemma, which he wasn't sure which one it is, of course it's neither, it's Haldane's dilemma, was a problem. And Haldane's dilemma has to do with prokaryotic organisms, and it was a dilemma that was solved in the 50s, and he's trying to apply it to humans. So we've got a 70-year-old thing that was never really a problem, but would only have been a problem for asexual organisms, and now Eric is going to pretend that that's a thing for humans.
maybe we can bring up Muller's ratchet too while we're at it.
That it would be nice. I'll tell you what, if he actually mentions Muller's ratchet, or he tries to, we'll take a drink, because my guess is he's not going to remember the name.
Oh God. Okay, let him rip.
All right.
To go from an ape-like creature to a human being. Let me give you another mathematics one.
Ooh.
How many people are on the planet right now?
Oh, we're right out of genetics. Okay, that's
7
fine.
billion?
We've increased. I had a kid.
7 billion and one.
Okay, weird
That's
flex, but okay, Eric. Weird flex.
Did that joke count as landing?
No, I'm drinking
All right.
because I understand that was a joke. And the joke was Eric is sexually active.
Ah. By the way, Star running for $20 says, with a Godzilla emoji, better drinks for Dap. Thank you. So actually, I'm going to tell you why I'm drinking a really crappy drink. And it's because I had to pay $80 to have a new copy of my birth certificate sent out. And that is an insane amount of money. And so when it came time to buy booze, I was like, well, this is a $10 handle of vodka. So yes, that's what I'm going with.
It do be that way. Again, I do not understand how you can charge $80 for a birth certificate copy. I don't get that.
It's insane to me, but hey, you know what? Maybe it has something to do with the fact that they had to go check the Jurassic records.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
They had to go consult. They had to go do some serious radiometric dating.
yeah, that is more expensive. So I'll give them that. All right, here we go.
There you go. We're actually, Ryan, getting close to the 8 billion mark.
Okay.
So,
So at the time that this was given, that was basically true. I'll take a drink for Eric getting something right. Mostly because we have to be generous with that one, or it just doesn't happen.
7 billion was about 7 years ago, and now we're getting close to 8 billion people on the planet. Don't want to get too political unless some of the leaders have their way. They want to lower that down. But anyway.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm going to take a drink for weird conspiracy theories. There is no depopulation, effort. At best, there are increased access to birth control to reduce the increase, which is a far cry from let's depopulate the planet. So for weird, cringy, really dumb conspiracy theories, I'm taking a drink.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that one wigs me out. It feels very Handmaid's Tale-y, if I'm being quite honest. I really feel like certain brands of evangelical a la the Hovens are kind of mad too that women don't get punished for having, sex outside of marriage. This goes all the way down to not being punished for childbirth anymore, because Eric strikes me as the type who would be like, you can't have an epidural, that's not how God intended it. Aren't you supposed to be in pain?
Yikes. Yeah, that's part of the curse. You want to get
Yeah,
rid of
that's
God's
part of the
curse. Which, by the
Yeah,
way,
this-
I don't know firsthand, but I understand that it's still not an exactly pleasant experience, even with the epidural.
Yes, but an epidural is, of course, secular man's imposition again on, God's, or at
Yes.
least Eric's version of God's perfect world,
Yeah.
or
Well,
even perfect world
well,
post
his
fall.
yeah, his the fallen world as God intended it to be cursed.
Right, precisely.
Yeah. I wonder what he would say if someone suggested using like genetic modification to get rid of all the thorns. We'd be like, no, we have to have the thorns because that's part of the curse too.
Exactly.
Or wait a minute, does hydroponics violate God's will because it doesn't involve working the soil? Because when the curse
I
is said
mean,
that Adam's going to have to work the soil, but what if you just go hydroponic? Then there's no soil.
well, the thing is, if you get too much into it, you can always just cry allegory where it's necessary, but
It's
never where it
true.
actually is exalted prose, according to pretty much every Christian scholar ever.
By the way, 2B323 says if they're doing a depopulation conspiracy, they're doing a really lousy job. Yeah, they really are.
Yeah,
That's one of my
of course
favorite
they
things about
are.
all those. Like, oh, they're spraying the air to depopulate the planet. It's like, well, it's not going too well if that's their goal, so maybe they should try a new tactic. All right, let's get some more Eric in here.
Which, by the way, little side note, if you did not believe in God and you believed in evolution and you believed that humans were just animals that
Okay, I don't know about Just, but so far I think he's describing both of us, Erica. So this is going to be what he has to say about what we think. So get ready for him telling you what you really believe.
Beautiful. Maybe he can elucidate it for me.
were not created by God, we don't have the Imago Dei, the
I'm going to take a drink for bad Latin. Imago.
Also,
Holy
is it
crap.
dei or day?
So that actually goes back and forth, and it looks like even in ancient Rome that probably would have gone either way. Yeah,
I know that.
there's actually a fair few words in Latin that you can either use a syllable break in one place or another, or in some cases use a diphthong or a syllable break. And we know because in a lot of cases, those words are used in different ways in poetry. And so they only work if you pronounce them a certain way, but then in other poems, they'll be used other ways. So apparently, yeah, in ancient Rome, there was a bit of flexibility on the proper pronunciation.
Didn't know that. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, look, Dapper Dino Channel, if you watch all of our stuff, you're definitely going to learn something. Although I do get things wrong occasionally, which I appreciate it when people call me out. So do that. If you know I'm wrong, call me out, because I don't want to be wrong.
image of God born into us, and you believe that the population was getting a little too big. Well, what do you do when there's too many animals in a population?
Well, it varies by animal. Now, Caleb Sherstead, for $5 says, quote, science is organized knowledge, wisdom is organized life. AIG is an organized sack of bratwurst. Kant. Thank you, Caleb.
Creative. We always love to see it.
I will definitely drink to that. I just did. Okay, so we all know Eric is going to go like, oh, you kill a whole bunch of them. The thing is, it varies, right? So, like, let's say I have a flock of chickens, right? And for some reason, I'm breeding them, right? Because maybe this isn't my main egg-producing flock. This is the flock I'm using to produce a new generation of egg layers. But oh no, I've got too many fertilized eggs. Well, there's a couple things. One, I get the rooster out of there. Two, I just don't incubate all the eggs. I don't have to kill anybody. But, like, let's say it's like, oh, there's too many deer in the forest, and because we're crazy Americans, we killed off all the wolves, so now we need to have a calling. Well, yeah, you're gonna have to kill some deer. But, like, it varies, and even if I did decide that there were too many humans on Earth, there's just too many, I, personally, wouldn't sterilize or kill them. I would do things like try to increase access to birth control, try to increase education. Economic development is a big one because first world countries have much, much lower birth rates, and you can actually watch birth rates decline as wealth increases. So helping the poorest of the poor in the world become less poor and better able to control their lives and finances will also help lower the growth rate. And if I actually need the growth rate to decline, well, I mean, yeah, lower the birth rate enough, and then more people will die of old age and natural causes than are born per year, and the population will start declining. But I bet Eric's going to come in here with, like, castrate or kill.
So also imagine thinking that reproducing at the fastest possible rate is more important rather than maintaining the quality of life of those who are already here, right? Like
Mhm.
even in the case of animals, right, that non-human animals, like ursids, for example, if their immediate well-being is being threatened, they will abort pregnancies.
Oh yeah.
So it's like as if as if it's somehow the evolutionary imperative to, with absolute disregard for the quality of life of organisms in your social group, just reproduce like gangbusters.
Hmm.
Like as if that's even close, especially for social animals. I mean, holy moly.
There are animals.
But I don't know.
There are animals who,
And
if they need to abandon their nest or burrow, will eat their young before they do so because hey, they invested a whole bunch of calories, might as well get some of it back and then leave.
oh yeah, absolutely. But the point being to all of this that the solution to overpopulation from an evolutionary perspective being mass culling and sterilization is really,
Well,
really
let's
goofy.
first we have to let him actually say it. So he hasn't quite said it, but when he does, we're gonna take a drink.
You cull them. Cull.
All right,
Cull
yep,
them.
take a drink.
You weed out some of the weak ones. I'm going to leave it right there. Let your imagination go wherever you want it to go after that. But
Oh, so he's
What?
barely he's trying to do Godwin's law without actually doing Godwin's law. I promise you, that's what just happened. He wants your
Okay.
mind to go to the National Socialist German Workers' Party.
Yeah, what a weird slap and go. Like, first of all, what a baby. You're basically alluding to that particular group without saying it. So, okay.
Yeah,
We all know what you mean. What's the point?
I don't. I don't actually know what the point. Well, actually, it could be that this was originally broadcast to YouTube, and he's trying to protect that guy's stream monetization, so he's not going right into it. Which is
It could be.
That's a big part of the reason that I say National Socialist German Workers' Party, because no, YouTube doesn't flag that ever.
Is cull not a flag word either? Which thank God he spelled it out. I clearly couldn't use context clues to figure out
Right.
what it is that he was actually saying. But whatever. I mean, I don't know.
So
I
to be
mean,
fair,
this-
I don't use it very much. I don't ever say call on the channel, so maybe.
This just feels like a poor lead up to, the leader of that one German party during World War II was a Darwinist. Like this feels like the leader of that, like the lead up to that.
Oh,
rather.
if we get there, then we'll have to take another drink for a correct prediction, because that's a distinct possibility, because creationists love that one, despite the fact that it's, nonsense. But, all right, here we go.
mathematically, how long would it take to get 8 billion people on a planet?
Depends on the carrying capacity.
Population growth, there's actually calculators online. You can go Google population growth calculator. I did a whole blog on this.
A whole blog?
An entire blog.
A whole blog? Okay, shit, Dapper, shut it down.
I'm taking a drink because
Down.
that's a stupid thing.
We have the evolutionists have once again been vanquished by the power of a blog.
the Yek
How many
blog.
times does it have to happen before we learn our lesson?
I don't know. I feel like we'll never learn
So-
our lesson because blogs are.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, okay, what all goes into a population growth rate, right? I mean, there are several different types of population growth rates that are impacted by things like infant mortality,
Mhm.
general lifespan of the critters, whatever you're talking about that's being assessed. There's environmental conditions. There's potential for midlife mortality, things like plague, things like accidents, if you're looking at like a Corvée labor party, right? I mean, there's a billion different things that are going to impact your population growth rate, which is why it happened so slowly until we got the advent of modern medicine. I mean, what is he alluding to here? That you can get this many people if you apply the population growth rate right now to the past? Okay, if you did that, then we wouldn't have the population that we have today. We would be an order of magnitude higher, if not more.
Yeah. Well, and of course, the other thing is, if you reach carrying capacity, I don't care how fecund the species is, you're at carrying capacity. You're not going any higher. And the thing
I
is,
mean, that's another thing. That goes back to the whole quality of life thing. Do you really want 20 billion people on planet Earth that can only support, what is it, something like 7 billion max with a high quality of life? I mean, there's not enough to go around. People are dying. People are killing each other.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that creationists always ignore. That's why they'll take seriously the idea that, like, oh, if humans had been around for, 100 million, or not 100 million, 100,000 years or whatever, then, they'd be just three humans thick across the entire face of the Earth. And it's just like, Oh, no, because you can only support so many of any given organism in any environment. And even if we take Earth as the environment as a whole thing, which to be, for humans, that's fair, right? Because what's the human habitat? Basically the entire planet. Okay. But, like, you can't make an infinite amount of food for humans on a finite surface of the Earth. And the thing is, you go back in time to, like, say, when basically when all humans were just hunter-gatherers in small groups of, like, maybe 100 at maximum? The carrying capacity was just much, much lower. You were in a situation where, like, a few bad hunts and, like, an ice, like a bad unseasonal frost or something that kills off a bunch of the fruit that you depend on, and now you don't have enough meat because you had some bad hunts. That could be it. That could be you're dead now. You're going to starve.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, so, yeah, the humans... If the Earth is millions of years old, and we know that human civilization, the ability to just reliably create surplus food, didn't exist for more than about, maybe 12,000 years or so. Before that, yeah, the population can't just grow out of control by a nice, smooth exponential.
We don't have to speculate on this either, right? Like, we have the meticulous record keeping of kingdoms like Egypt, right? Early and middle. We have access to innumerable cemeteries, ancient cemeteries, where we can get a general idea of who mortality was impacting most often. And we can actually chart that in some more recent cases with certain outbreaks, right? Like things like plague in the Middle Ages in Europe. So, but take that back in time, and a huge portion of these ancient Egyptian cemeteries are little kids, right? Because
Yeah.
kids die. Kids have to reach a certain age before they're given a decent shot at making it to 30.
Hey, look, a significant portion of my grandmother's siblings didn't make it to be adults.
Oh yeah.
That's
Well,
2
because
generations ago.
it turns out that without the advent of modern medicine, people drop like flies if the conditions aren't right.
Yeah.
I mean, nature doesn't care if a single nucleotide substitution is going to give you, sickle cell anemia, and give you immune conference to malaria, but also make you anemic, right? It's like these little changes can doom an entire organism. They're decided before they're even born.
Yep. All right, let's get some more Eric in here, and let's hear him tell us about population growth.
Nye doesn't want you to know. It's on our Creation Today website where I lay this out, but
It's a secret, guys. We don't want you to know. I'm just take a quick drink for more conspiracy nonsense.
human population of 8 billion right now.
Okay.
You trace that backwards. Back in 2000, we crossed the 6 billion mark, 21 years ago. Actually, 1999, 22 years ago. You go back to 1963, there were only, was it 2 or 3 billion? 2 billion people, 3 billion people on the planet, 1963. At the time of 1800, 200 years ago, 1 billion people on the planet. You trace the entire population of 8 billion backwards, it only goes back, including wars, famine, disease, all that stuff, only goes back about 4,400 years.
That's the thing, though. That's not true. All right, so basically...
Wait, is he kidding? He just put a number on that? He put it to the exact... Wow, how convenient.
Right.
The exact date that so many creationists seem to propose for the flood.
Exactly.
You're telling me that, like, you're telling me that the periods of initial early kingdom Egypt were drastically different, and the population growth rate suddenly took a massive incline when compared to, like, Nakata 1 and 2?
Apparently.
Is that a joke?
Well, and also, if you actually just take the smooth thing back, you end up with things like, 18 people in the entire Earth built the pyramids in Egypt, but also were building monumental architecture in, like, the Yangtze River Valley in China? Okay,
and
sure.
over in South America, right? They're
Right.
doing ziggurats over there as well.
And the Indus Valley. I mean, those were some very, very busy and well-traveled, 18 people.
Well, for those of you who are wondering, perhaps out in the audience, this is the issue with their population growth rate, right? If they want to assume this massively unrealistic, low infant mortality, low mortality period growth rate, right? In order to get enough people potentially to start work on just one of the of megalithic monuments that exists in Mesopotamia, because they can't have any of them be built prior to the flood. If that was the case, and they they should maybe show some sign that they were hit by giant mega deluges.
Yeah, all
so they all have
those
to be post.
tsunamis, maybe.
Yeah, they all have to be post flood, right? From things like ziggurats and like Dapper mentioned over in the Yangtze Valley, Central America and South America, things like that.
Göbekli Tepe
So they have
in
Göbekli
Turkey.
Tepe. Yeah, they have to invoke these insane population rates just to get enough people for one megalithic monument. Usually they talk about the pyramids of Giza. And usually they're going to invoke something along the lines of 30,000 people to build the pyramids of Giza. Okay, so 30,000 people to build the pyramids of Giza and 0 for all of the other monuments. 1. 2, if you were to maintain that population growth rate, you're going to end up with, I forget the exact number, but it's something along the lines of like enough people that they could straight up stand shoulder to shoulder across the globe to present day.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're invoking a growth rate that is so unreasonable and you're maintaining that it's exponential up to present day for 4,400 years, then you are ending up with so many more people than there are ants on the planet,
Right.
which is of course unreasonable and more importantly, not what we see.
And of course, the other problem is that if you don't say that it's just a smooth growth rate, and now you admit that it can vary based on things like environmental constraints, well, then it's no longer an argument for a recent humanity. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's
or you need to you have to present either some reason that it started off exponential until you have enough people to account for all the megaliths, and then you know chop it off at that point and it becomes
that's
drastically
easy.
high mortality again.
Here's the reason. Post hoc rationalizations.
Perfect.
There you go. That's all you need.
Really late fall impacts, right? Like really late impact, delayed impact from
Genetic
the fall.
entropy just really hit really strong about 1,000 years after the flood. Who knows why?
Yeah, we don't know why, but actually don't give them any ideas.
Oh my goodness, I know.
I feel like that could actually be something that would come out of Nathaniel Jeanson. But yeah, if you're invoking a population rate high enough to get enough people for just the pyramids of Giza, then you're going to end up with far, far, far too many people now, not reflective at all of what we actually see. And if you invoke a reasonable population growth rate, then you don't have enough people to build the damn monuments.
All right.
So I don't know what kind of population, desktop application that Eric is using, but something tells me that he has not given this very much thought.
I'm pretty sure he's just using like X times Y to the N, where N is generation number and Y is like average number of children from X.
Yeah, something like that. And I'm sure
That's
he's
it.
like, women, because women just love being pregnant. So naturally, a woman is going to, from puberty until menopause, just be consistently and constantly pregnant.
Oh, I mean, give them like a 2-week recovery care. Like 2 or 3 week recovery. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 to 3 week recovery. Forget the fact that a miscarriage is so ridiculously common to the point that most women, 2 out of 3 have had a miscarriage, and 1 out of 3 of those, rather 1 of those 2/3 doesn't even know it.
Yeah,
because it happens so early on in the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, routinely women miscarry without knowing they were pregnant in the first place.
Yeah, because it turns out mammal pregnancy, when you're investing in being very altricial, can be kind of a dangerous game to play.
All right, here we go. Indeed.
Well, isn't that interesting? Why?
Yeah, it's interesting that you fit your math to your preconceived notions and then went, the math works. That is interesting, Eric.
To quote my very mean middle school math teacher, do you think maybe you could show your work on that one?
I'm just going to take a drink because I think, isn't that interesting? Also was a joke that didn't land.
Why would it do that? By the way, if you look this up on secular population growth charts, they'll go back to 4,000 or 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, somewhere in there where it's a real small. And then they just estimate 500,000 or 5 million or 2 million, 3 million. They say humans 3 million years ago, so 2 to 3 million years.
Okay,
Wait,
hold on.
Humans 3 million years ago?
We have to unpack that. Hold on, we have to unpack that a little. What do we mean by human? Do we mean member of genus Homo? Do we mean anatomically modern Homo sapiens? Do we need archaic Homo sapiens? What are we talking about here? Do we mean the beginning of the LCA, the split off from the LCA with chimps? Because that's going to give us maybe 7 million years if we're talking about the LCA. It's going to give us 300,000 if we're talking about archaic to anatomically modern. It's going to give us, what, 50,000 if we're just talking about anatomically modern. And if we're talking about Homo, it depends on who you include in Homo. It could be anywhere from 1 to 2 million years ago. But the super weird thing about all this is that he's like, and it's a blink and you'll miss it. But he's like, yeah, if you consult these secular charts, they won't show a sharp increase in human populations until 4,000, 4,500, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000, somewhere in there, right? Gestures wildly at dates which completely preclude young Earth creationism, right? I mean,
Right.
from a 6,000 year time span. So which is it, Eric? Because if you're taking the young Earth creationist timeline seriously and you're trying to back that with any kind of empiricism, then you need to argue that it is absolutely indefensible that any kind of population growth rate from a secular perspective go any further back than 4,400 years.
Yep. Well, another thing is we have actual like reasons for the estimates before basically historical records, because you look at things like how extensive is the archaeological record, and what kind of food are people producing, how like dense is like burial sites from particular time frames. Where are you even finding human settlements as opposed to simply scattered hunter-gatherer groups, right? Because the rise of urbanization correlates with a rise in population in an area. So it's not like we're just pulling these numbers out of hats and saying, oh, 8,000 years ago, the population was 50,000? Sure, why not? That's not what's happening.
Yeah, we're not pulling numbers out of hats, but moreover, I very much doubt that it's going to take you to, that any secular population growth rate is going to show a sharp incline at 4,400 years, which is what they need specifically.
Actually, we can
they don't need it to be 4,000, and they don't need it to be 4,500. They need it to be 4,400 specifically in order to back Eric's point. It should ubiquitously show across every single secular population growth rate a sharp incline at 4,400 years, but we don't see that. Instead, we get Eric, nebulously tossing his hands up at the fact that there is a range of 4,000 to 10,000 years.
Right. All right. Well, here's a population growth rate, and look, this is a secular source, and we're just gonna put it up here for a second, and it doesn't really matter where it's from because I'm just showing it to see does this actually follow Eric's claim about what secular sources show for growth rates? So we're gonna take a look at and see, and Nope. I'm actually seeing it staying pretty flat throughout the entire common era, because this is only common era. But hey, you know what? We have another one where we have this going all the way back to 10,000 BC. So let's take a look at what that looks like. We'll take a look at this. And hey, look at that. It's actually staying pretty slow growth rate that starts around 8,000 BCE. Where we actually start coming up off of what is essentially the zero line. And then we don't really have any exponential increase until
the Industrial Revolution?
Yeah,
perhaps?
Basically.
Wow, how interesting. It's almost like they didn't have the equivalent of modern medicine in Middle Kingdom Egypt.
And also, it's almost like Eric either never checked to see if his statements about quote-unquote secular population growth rates were correct, or he's lying.
Yeah, and I for one resent the use of secular as if it's some kind of othering group, right? Eric does not, young Earth creationists don't have a monopoly on Christians. Plenty of Christians accept the quote unquote secular growth rate.
The
secular
majority.
Is just referring to, secular is just referring to the fact that it's not using religion to guide its investigation.
Right. That is
right? So Christians, Muslims, Jewish people, Hindu people, all of these groups can accept secular anything and maintain their religion just fine.
Yeah. In fact, if you pick a random Christian off of the globe, the chances are much better that they accept all of the science and the population growth charts than that they are young Earth creationists.
In the States, especially so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the most recent poll that I've seen has young Earth creationists down to 18%.
Wow.
So good for us, I guess.
Getting there. I mean, I remember a few decades ago when it was more like 40% were young Earth creationists, and like 60% of Americans were like anti-evolutionists to some degree.
I saw someone on YouTube quote that 40% number relatively recently, but the poll that I've been looking at is Pew Research, and it's from 2018, so it's 2019 maybe, but fairly recently.
Jens van Broekhoven for €5 says, "Is history a science?" No, history is not a science. It is related to various scientific endeavors like archaeology, but it is not itself a science. And the biggest reason for that is because while science depends on observations and experiments using the natural world, history uses written records as its primary source. And that is basically, by the definition, history is the study of the human past as written down by humans. So if you're looking at the human past by anything else, that can help inform history, but it's not itself history. And so
this is why, this is potentially why some archaeology is quote unquote science and some archaeology is less so.
Yeah. So
right, because archaeology that uses written records is being informed by history,
right,
and archaeology that's relying on like lithics, etc., isn't relying on a written history of anything.
So an example could be, we have a story from writings about the evolution of the Hebrew pork taboo, which then eventually turned into the Muslim pork taboo and spread throughout certain areas in the Middle East, right? But we also have an archaeological record from middens, and middens is just what you call a trash dump after you're using it for archaeology instead of using it as a trash dump. And the middens in the Middle East tell us a story about the fact that pig consumption was more widespread than the written records would indicate, because the written records are coming from relatively high-class, wealthy people who are using this pork taboo as a way to enforce some kind of cultural hegemony on their people, as opposed to other people who don't share this pork taboo. But the people on the ground don't always really care. And so we can use that archaeology, which just says, hey, here's the prevalence of pig bones in middens in this area from this time. And that can help inform what's going on in history. But history's primary sources is still, well, this is what people were writing down about the pork taboo. So there's a fun little example of how history isn't a science, but it interacts with sciences to help come to a more complete picture overall of what was actually going on in the past. But yes, it's not a science. Which, sorry, Chesh, I know that you keep thinking it's a science, but that doesn't make it the case. And then
It doesn't make it unimportant or less valid.
Oh no, history is very important, and I got a degree in it, and I don't think it's invalid in any way. But that's also because I don't think that science is the only way to gain knowledge. Scott Duke for $4.99 says, off topic, but I know I must say AIG is a rucksack of human male genitalia. We'll take a drink for that.
Oh, beautiful. Drink.
All right, let's hit play on this one.
There's no way you can have a tiny human population for millions of years.
Why?
Wait, what? Yeah, why?
But
What do you mean? What do you mean it's impossible?
He's
Why?
going to say genetic entropy. Or he'll
God.
conflate it with
Yes.
inbreeding. It'll be, either he's going to be genetic entropy on its own, or he'll be like genetic entropy plus inbreeding, which are basically opposite effects, by the way. So
Yeah, dude, I'm psyched. I'm psyched to hear him talk about genetic entropy. Hearing Eric Hoven stumble through genetics is just my dream.
well, he can't be any worse than his father, who thinks that base pairs are genes.
No way.
I'm not kidding.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it afterwards, but I'll try to find that clip for you. It's amazing.
Wow.
It is somewhere on my channel.
Yikes.
Genetic load would be insane.
Genetic load, yeah,
We're
that's
passing down
Mhm.
between 150 and 300 genetic mutations to the next generation.
okay.
I live just
Beautiful.
south of Alabama. I've seen some people that were passed down way more than 100 to 300 genetic mutations. We call them rednecks.
No, you're conflating. Oh my goodness, I'm taking a drink.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Oh.
to drink for that too. That's
Okay, so the
That's
redneck.
not even a good summary of genetic entropy.
No. Also, I'm actually going to drink for the redneck joke because that is a joke that wasn't funny.
Hmm.
Okay, but the thing is, by making the redneck joke, Eric is saying that inbreeding causes an increased mutation rate. But that's just not true. It doesn't. The problem with inbreeding is that it makes it more likely that you're going to be homozygous for detrimental alleles that would be recessive. So, for instance, most people have one or two alleles that, if they were homozygous for them, would cause a serious genetic disease. But because those alleles are relatively rare, chances are that whoever they reproduce with is unlikely to have the exact same ones, which means that their children are unlikely to have them. About half their children will end up having that particular dangerous allele, but none of them are likely to have 2 of any one copy. But if you start breeding with close relatives, you increase the chance as you do that per generation that both you and your partner will both have that same detrimental allele. One of the things that this means is that for a generation or two, actually, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. So, for instance, in families that don't have a long history of inbreeding, first cousin reproduction usually causes no noticeable effects. However, in societies where first cousin marriages is preferred, they have higher rates of various genetic diseases which correlate to family lines. And we know this because there are populations, especially in like Western Asia, where first cousin marriages are the preferred marriage for those societies. And they have higher rates of genetic diseases as a result of this. And so, like, this isn't a question, but what it doesn't do is make you mutate more. Humans mutate at about the same rate. And yeah, Eric's citing of 100 to 150 it's basically in line with measured mutation rates. But you also have to remember that mutation rates aren't the same thing as the phylogenetic replacement rate, because mutations get weeded out through several steps. And so over time, if you look at populations that are diverge at known times, which we can do in a number of cases. So for instance, there are a number of islands around the world that were settled during historic times. One of them is the Seychelles, which was settled from the Maghreb region of North Africa. We have Madagascar, which was actually settled by people from like the northern Indian Ocean area, so like India and some of the islands there. We also have Tristan da Cunha, which was settled by Portuguese people like in like the last millennium, like, you know, hundreds of years ago, not thousands. And so what we can do is we can take a look at them and the populations that we know they split off from, because they're the ones that they're the most similar to, and look at the various mutations that have actually persisted through those two groups. And when you get that, you actually find that the phylogenetic replacement rate, the rate at which mutations accumulate in a genome over many generations, is significantly lower than the mutation rate. So even if mutations were per se always going to be a problem, we know that it's happening way less slowly than Erika is implying. Plus, it's just not the case that mutations are per se going to be a problem.
I mean, yeah, that's the driving material behind evolution. This idea that mutations occur is vital to the theory because it's what naturally provides variation within a population. Otherwise, natural selection would impact every organism in exactly the same way if everything was genetically identical and reproducing asexually.
Oh, I was
mutations.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was thinking of the Canary Islands, not the Seychelles. Sorry about that. I got my islands confused. Because the Venerable points out that it wasn't Seychelles that was settled by Berbers. It was, although I'm not sure it was Berbers, but either way, I was thinking of the Canary Islands. There's too many islands out there, is what I'm going to go with. It's too many of them. Let's get rid of some of them.
There are a lot of islands. I mean, something, too, that I've noticed that creationists don't seem to understand very well is this idea that what kind of mutation is beneficial is going to be context-specific. This is just completely missed by a great majority of them. So I would love to pick Eric's brain here and say, okay, first of all, what's giving you the impression that all mutations are detrimental? Because first of all, the majority of them are neutral. They don't impact the organism in any meaningful way, right? And this is the beauty of the genetic code, is that it's redundant. But the second thing I would ask is, okay, well, what do you consider beneficial versus detrimental? Because a lot of these genetic entropy guys have this very vague, nebulous idea of ultimate fitness, and they don't call it that, but they have this idea that what is fit in one environment is going to be fit in every environment, and that of course eliminates, alleles that are going to confer some kind of fitness benefit in a given environment, but a detriment in another.
Right, which is virtually every beneficial mutation that's ever occurred.
It's pretty much all of them.
Yeah, it's hard to think. Like, I guess there was that one in humans that just, like, other than greatly reducing the risk of heart disease, doesn't seem to do anything else. And I guess that would probably be beneficial in all environments, but, like, that's by far the minority of things that, scientists would consider beneficial.
Right, but it's also the opposite of what beneficial is. If it confers any kind of fitness benefit, it's going to be beneficial regardless of what kind of context it's in. That's why the context determines what's beneficial. There's no ultimate context, nor is there an ultimate fitness.
Right.
And that's why ultimately what this means is that they have to change the definition of fitness in order to make genetic entropy work.
Right.
So as you mentioned, of course, genetic entropy is at odds with inbreeding, but equally as important is to mention the fact that genetic entropy can't get its own definition straight, for one, and for two, it operates under a straw man of evolution.
Yeah. Well, the big thing that genetic entropy does is normal, actual science uses fitness to talk about reproductive success. So, how many descendants did you leave? How much more of the population is your descendant than we would expect by random chance? Things like that. That's how we measure fitness. But for genetic entropy, you have to change it to something like, I pick arbitrary engineering criteria. I'm like, is this particular chemical reaction more efficient in terms of utilization of inputs, or does this heart valve more efficiently function to stop blood flow when not appropriate? And it's like, okay, look, you can measure all those things, but that's not what anyone's talking about when they're talking about fitness, because if any of those things that you think are quote unquote less fit because it gets less whatever engineering criterion you've picked, that doesn't necessarily translate into what's going to happen in the population. And the thing is, we also know that those engineering type fitnesses can also increase. I mean, we see it happen. So,
yeah.
Landon Knoll's here. Landon Knoll is sort of a genius, and by sort of I mean he's absolutely a genius. He finds new prime numbers for fun.
God damn. Yeah, that is pretty genius. That's not me. That ain't me.
I believe he holds several records for various categories of new primes. So.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the engineering stuff goes, the hominin fossil record is beautiful for that. I mean, we see bipedality emerge and become more efficient over time. But all that would have to happen to set that process back is to have the organism with the mutation for, a slightly more valgus knee, get tossed down a chasm, right? And that allele is completely out of the picture. I mean, chance does play a role in all of this.
Oh, absolutely, because mutations are more or less stochastic.
Right, which is precisely, I mean, that additionally plays a role in why is it problematic that the second we get a beneficial mutation, it doesn't immediately move to fixation, because there's more at play typically.
Right. By the way, M first, J last, which is how I'm going with right now, says, please review Faroe Islands, North Atlantic Ocean, have the highest rate of carnitine deficiency, inborn error of metabolism, perhaps due to one sea captain long ago. Yeah, that is one of the things that you can see as interesting little things, is these relatively isolated populations, either physically or just because of their mating habits. So you get things like that, which, by the way, the Faroe Islands, very isolated, and also speak a language called Faroese, derived from Old Norse. So there you go. They're one of the groups that speak about Viking language. But you also get things like there's a particular tribe in Africa who a very high portion have a foot deformity where they grow their toes, but in two weird groups that kind of turn in towards each other medially. And they're sometimes referred to as being ostrich-footed because they externally look like they have two toes, which is the number of toes ostriches have. And
Neanderthals were classic for this.
Yeah.
Late Neanderthals were classic for inbreeding. Multiple isolated pockets, interbreeding amongst individuals, and it's for this reason that some types of Neanderthal DNA can actually confer specific predispositions to specific types of genetic disorders if you've got the right chunk and enough copies of it.
Neanderthals get around more in the past.
I know it. Humans were the OG as far as free love.
All right, here we go.
Sapiens, I should be clear.
Right.
But so we've got all this genetic load. We don't have millions of years of genetic load. We've only got a couple thousand years of genetic load.
Look, you know what this needs? This needs what you call a citation. Because
also a little bit of phrasing. How many times can you say genetic load before it starts feeling a little bit weird? Maybe tell us what a genetic load is, Eric. Because there is another very easy definition for a genetic load, and I would prefer that to not be the one we're discussing here.
And that's the kind of one that will get your stream taken down.
That's the kind of one that will get your stream taken down. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. John Sanford wrote a book called Entropy in the Cell,
Yeah.
where he traces how
We're
many
just taking a
genetic
drink for
mutations
Sanford.
are there now. Brilliant guy.
How many genetic mutations are there? I'm taking a drink because that's an insane thing. You cannot track how many genetic mutations are there because you would have to have a starting point, and there is no evident starting point for when there were no mutations.
How many genetic mutations? I'm thinking 5, maybe 6.
Total. Ever.
Total. Ever.
Whole world, yeah.
That's the number. Yeah, that's the number of genetic mutations. You gotta be kidding me.
Such an insane thing to even talk about. Carrie Bronson for
Beautiful, Carrie
$5
Bronson.
says
That's beautiful.
AIG are a bag of deliverers of genetic load. Oh my
Very
goodness.
creative.
It's creative, but it also kind of makes me want to go wash my hands or something.
Oh yeah, no, same.
Oh my goodness. That's great. All right, here we go.
The gene gun for splicing.
Oh, and by the way, Samuel Bedsole says the ostrich-footed people are called the Bodoma tribe, hailing from Zimbabwe. That does sound familiar. Fun fact: at one point, Zimbabwe's finance minister decided the country was no longer going to track their annual inflation rate because, according to him, computers couldn't account that high. So,
God.
yeah,
Oh no.
yeah.
Genetic information, and how much genetic problems do we have? And he's like, look, we only got a few thousand years worth of genetic problems, not millions, not at all millions. So the human population at 8 billion today, you trace that backwards, it only goes back about 4,400 years. You certainly don't have tens of thousands of years, let alone millions of years of humanity.
So this whole thing assumes that you're starting with this perfect, unmutated genome. But the thing is, that's just not the case. We can trace mutations back arbitrarily far, right? Like, you can find mutations that happen in the entire, like, say, tetrapod line that didn't happen in, say, the line leading to lungfish.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you really want to get fancy with it, you could probably, in a perfect world with a perfect fossil record that yields every paleogenome of all time, you could probably trace mutations all the way back to the universal last common ancestor of all critters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's seriously the nature of this. Mutation is just a copying error in either, DNA replication or protein synthesis. That's all it is, right? And in really lucky cases, it's going to confer some kind of new function to a protein. It's going to, impact phenotypes in major ways. In others, it's not going to do that much. But golly, I mean, to start with that, we could talk all day about John Sanford and things that he says with genetic entropy.
Maybe we will
Dr.
someday.
Dan has covered that. Yeah, Dr. Dan has covered that a lot.
Oh yeah, check out Creation
and really
Myths.
gone in. Yeah, check out Creation Myths. He's really gone into the weeds of that. Rehashing it here would be, at least from my end, just doing a worse version of what he's covered. But the bottom line is, yeah, what Eric is saying here is just blatantly incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let's let him say a little bit more, and then we're going to take a break pretty soon.
We had been here. Encyclopedia Britannica did this. They said, let's suppose man evolved from an ape-like creature, and we're going to call them humans, just 1 million years ago.
Weird choice, but okay.
What?
I mean, I guess we could do that. Look, where you cut off a line for human is going to be arbitrary. So, I guess I don't know where he's
Thank
going
you.
with this.
I get all my resources though from Encyclopedia Britannica, of course.
Oh, right. The height of peer review.
Yeah.
1 million years ago. And at the time they did this study, which was around 2000, they said,
Oh,
we're going to
good.
grow the human population at a slow rate. Instead of today's rate at that time in 2000, the population was growing at the rate of 1.7% annually. So that was the population growth. They said, we're not going to grow it at 1.7. We're going to grow it at 0.001%. That's really slow. That would double the number of people every 7,000 years. So 1 million years ago, you got the first 2 people. An ape stands up and is like,
The first 2 people. I'm taking a drink for the first 2 people.
I'm also going to take a drink for an ape stands up.
Yeah, because they do that all the time anyway.
Because they do it all the time anyway, and also imagining that, I mean, this is like baby cartoon version of human evolution.
I know. I still can't get over, though, the first two people. Okay, look. Evolution is a thing that happens to populations. Whole populations evolve. There was never a first pair of humans. It doesn't make any sense. The analogy I like is language, right? And I know I've done it before on the channel. I don't know if I'll do it today. But, like, sometimes I'll go back and I'll read out some old English, right? And now, to modern English speakers who haven't been trained in that language, it just sounds like a bunch of gibberish. You might catch every 7th or 8th word if you're lucky. And it's more likely going to be like 1 in a dozen that you catch. And even then, you have to really be listening. But there wasn't a first person to speak modern English. The entire population of English speakers continue to understand each other all throughout the time from the 8th century until now, without ever there being a one person who woke up one day and said, oh, well, I speak late modern English now. How am I going to talk to everyone else who's still speaking just like Chaucer? That's going to be a problem.
How am I going to dab on them?
Right.
And then he gets immediately executed for being a witch by a Chaucer speaker, a Chaucer level speaker.
See, that's not what happened. That's also not what happened in evolution. A population of hominins was evolving, and eventually that population became the progenitor of modern extant human diversity. And you could call that the first group of humans, maybe, depending on exactly how you want to define human. But it was an entire population. It likely would have involved thousands at the very least, not 2. And there was no moment at which they changed morphologically and became the first humans. The only reason we can say that they were the first humans is because any group farther distant from them, like outside that group genetically, didn't result in later humans. So phylogenetically, ancestrally, they can be reasonably said to be the first humans as a population. But it didn't even involve anything special about them. And so, like,
well,
yeah,
it's that, and it's also like, oh God, and I hesitate to get in the weeds with this just because it's such a touchy and annoying subject, but creationists very rarely, in my opinion, get a decent grasp on like what a species is, let alone what a species concept is. Species concepts are really important when we're talking about paleontology, especially what is the first human, right? How are we defining a species and how are we defining human are two incredibly critical definitions to set on the outset before we ever even begin to have this conversation. And the reason is for many of the things that Dapper described, but also due to the fact that if we did have that perfect fossil record and we could see all of these fossil hominins, living in perfect sequential slices, you wouldn't be able to tell where Australopithecus began any more than you would be able to tell where human began.
Yeah, it's what you call a continuum problem, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
a famous and non-controversial... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's exactly what you were saying with language, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had, there wasn't a point where Homo habilis gave birth to, Homo georgicus, Homo ergaster, or Homo erectus, depending on how you're classifying things. Right? This isn't how it happens, right? Reproductive isolation additionally occurs at the population level. I mean, you may have very drastic examples a handful of times, in evolution where you get something morphologically distinct from its parent in a way that would perhaps reproductively isolate it. But I mean, really and truly, that's going to have to be in very specific cases, which is why we don't have any singular example of it. Because evolution just doesn't tend to happen that way.
Also, House of Reason 78 says, but wait, Dapper, that would mean that the Tower of Babel is untrue. Yes, that is correct. There is no good reason to think the Tower of Babel is a story that can be taken seriously as literal history.
Dapper, you're a Babel denier? Are you serious?
Yeah.
How come you never told me?
Well, I'm telling you now, and you never asked.
My God, I guess I just assumed that you were a Babel affirmer, given your love for language and the fact that, all evidentiary data, of course, naturally points to young Earth creationism, which necessitates a Tower of Babel.
I'll say this for the Tower of Babel. And
how could I assume that?
This is specifically going out to Gupdu 3, who, by the way, I had a Leaving Young Earth Creation with. I believe that one was called Leaving Young Earth Creationism with Steven, and I'm hoping I got your name right, Gupdu 3, because I'm really bad at that, so if I didn't, please yell at me. Anyway, So I will say this about the Babel. There's that passage in the Bible is sometimes called the Babel text, and I support its use as a model text for constructed languages so that you have something that you can compare across different constructed languages using that as like a standard translation exercise. And I'm not the only one who advocates for that. And then we're going to do a quick super chat, and then we're going to get out of here for a quick intermission, and then we're going to be back. So that's the order of things. Silver Harlow for $5 says, it's the Sorites? I'm not sure. Paradox. Probably Greek, so Sorites, paradox, continuum fallacy. There's no bright line in the historical change of languages or genetics. Yeah, and you can do the same thing with color, right? So, like, you can have a gradient from, like, red to blue with purple in the middle. Where does purple start? Where does it end? When does red become purple? When does purple become blue? I don't know. There's no answer. So, yeah, we're going to take a quick... why are y'all saying Babel? You know what, Vishanti? Because that's how a lot of English speakers do.
Babel.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to tell English speakers that they have to pronounce all words with Hebrew, with a Hebrew etymology exactly the way that they were pronounced in Hebrew, or the way that they're pronounced in like modern rabbinic Hebrew. I just don't care enough. But I will call out Eric for saying imagio instead of imago. Anyway, we're going to go on an intermission, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back. I got myself a fresh drink, and also I gave the doggies here a treat each because they have been very, very quiet today, and I appreciate that. So they get an appreciation treat. So there you go. They eat. I think they're eating better than I am today with my cheap $10 vodka.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder. Like the stuff that I put in my own body, not great.
Yeah, well, now we're gonna put some Eric in your brain. It's even worse.
I know. I have to make sure that I'm equally poisoning all parts of my body.
All right, here we go.
I'm a human, and a girl ape's like, that looks like fun, and they get together, and they're the
What?
first two people.
I'm just gonna drink as he goes through this.
And the girl ape goes, that looks like fun. First of all, Eric, very, very patriarchal of you to assume that the first bipedal ape was in fact a dude. I'm not thrilled about that. I'm thinking I'm considering calling in my personal army of cancelers to get Eric for that one. But more importantly, that's just the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point out, anytime any two humans have ever mated, that was a pair of apes thinking that seemed like a good time, unless one of them wasn't agreeing to it.
Or that looks like fun, right?
Yeah. That was at least, I'll say this, it was at least one ape thinking that seemed like a fun time.
Just call that every hominid pair ever.
Yeah. All right.
7,000 years later, you've now gone from 2 people to 4 people. 7,000 years after that, now a total of 14,000 years, you now got 8 people. 7,000 years later, you've doubled, and now what are you at, Ryan?
16.
Yeah! You said you weren't good at math. 16,
Yeah, we're going to take a drink for that. That was cringy.
and then 30.
So yes, we need to take a drink because that was just incredibly uncomfortable. Eric is capable of hitting octaves that I doubt I can hit sometimes. I mean, no shade. It's more jealousy
There's
than
a
anything
reason
else.
that in church he sang the alto part in the choir.
Yeah, hell yeah. But okay, so he
By the way, that was
So
just
he
made up.
brings
I don't know
up-
if that's true.
he brings up a study that uses slow population growth rates, right? And he's using that study against evolution, and he's using that on the basis of a warped understanding of how evolution happens, because he's assuming that we are starting with a population of 2 humans, because that's what he's starting with.
Right. Adam and Eve. That's what. Look, there can't be that much difference between evolution and creationism. We all just start with 2 humans, right? No.
We all just start with 2 humans. But then he's using the study to bust evolution when it busts creationism worse, even if he's using an incorrect straw man of evolution.
Yeah.
Like, that's really a killer for me. Why bring it up in the first place? He's like, look, this study disproves evolution. And it's like, yeah, but it makes it worse for creation. And also, it's not even busting evolution. It's busting your baby version of what you think evolution is.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And you do that every 7,000 years. In 1 million years, Ryan, you would double the number of people 142 times. 1 million divided by 7,000. Well, if you took 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2.
You can say 2 to the 147th power, Eric. My God. I'm going to take a drink for this.
Times 2 times 2. 142 times?
Oh, 142. My apologies.
That's how many living, not dead, living people would be on the planet in 1 million years at that incredibly small growth rate.
Okay.
It's
Assuming that we didn't hit... Well, first, assuming that starting with 2 is a reasonable thing, and assuming that we didn't earlier hit any carrying capacities, and that there were no major wars and no major plagues, and, I mean... Here's
I'd be curious. I'd be curious if this is assuming any mortality at all, because it sounds to me like what he's saying is he's using a doubling rate.
Well, so you
Right,
can
like, what-
you can use a doubling rate even with a
include
mortality. Right.
Right, but what is our value for that?
I don't know. I think that what they probably went with, because first of all, I'm not entirely certain that this study was actually done. This sounds like a made-up story, but I'm not sure, and it's not completely unreasonable that someone might have done this. But basically, you can pick an arbitrary doubling rate and then just assume that you've calculated a mortality rate, right? Or you can even measure a doubling rate and not have to measure the mortality rate because no matter what it is, it's already been worked into your measured doubling rate.
Right, but you could just present a doubling rate then.
Well, I think that's
unless you're presenting how you achieve the doubling rate.
I think
then
it was
why
arbitrary.
does anybody have? Yeah, well, in Eric's case, it is, but in the case of actually using and trying to model population growth, all of these factors are things that you need to include.
But
in your
Erika, he's not
analysis.
trying to actually model anything here.
No,
Let's
that's
be
my
clear.
point.
Right,
That's my point. My point is that Eric is taking a study that we don't know exists, but if it does exist, then it has values for these given kind of quandaries that I'm presenting here. And he's choosing not to present them,
Yeah.
which is kind of weird.
All right. Let's see what he's got.
10 to the 43rd power of people.
Wait, no, 2 to the 142nd, which is what you said earlier, Eric, can't be 10 to the 143rd. Any power of 2 is going to be less than that same power of 10 as an actual total number, and you can't go up an entire order of magnitude past that when you're doing it by orders of 10. That's not how math works. I don't know.
How dare you assume? How dare you assume that he knows how this works?
That's fair, but I'm taking a drink for, like, Eric getting everything about math wrong in, like, one sentence. Oh, my goodness. Pro tip,
it does
creationists.
Get impressive.
Pro tip. 2 to the 142 is a smaller number than 10 to the 143. Just throwing that out there. My goodness.
And that's unreasonable of you to expect of Eric.
It does seem to be.
10 with 43 zeros behind it.
Oh, 43. Okay. I withdraw my complaint. He didn't say 143, or maybe he didn't, he misspoke, and now he's correcting to 43, so my apologies, Eric. You didn't get it quite as wrong as I thought.
How many people would be? We would be on top of 100 miles of nothing but human bones.
And there we go. Just ignoring the fact that carrying capacity exists, that population lowering events exist, that plagues happen, that wars happen, that famines happen. None of that. Populations only ever go up in smooth exponential growth rates. That's the only thing they can ever do. And I'm taking a drink because that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Even Eric doesn't believe that because he believes in a global flood that wiped out all but 8 of a presumably much larger population, which means Eric thinks that populations can decline.
Hey, not only that, but he also, and AIG does this too, they have to invoke 2 separate population growth rates. One, again, to get all the megaliths, and then it has to chop and truncate off in order to explain why we aren't standing on top of each other today.
Yeah.
So he's butchering math. He's using a straw man version of what evolution actually even claims, which, again, I'm absolutely floored that I even expected anything remotely comprehensible evolutionary theory-wise coming from Eric. Then he takes his own principle applying it to evolutionary theory and the reason it's bad and stupid, and then turns around and doesn't actually invert it into his own ideas.
Yeah.
Which he's doing this, which effectively requires precisely what he's criticizing his straw man of evolution for.
All right, here we go.
I can't believe
that.
Look, I can't believe any of this, and yet it's happening.
Or the case. Man, I could go on. The amount of salt in the oceans is at about 3.6, 3.7%, but the oceans are getting...
Last time we talked about salinity. That was a prediction we made from the last
that's
one.
true.
I remember it specifically.
Oh, I should take a drink. Also,
yeah, drink for salinity. Let's see
Erika,
if we'll get
I can
lunar
tell,
recession.
I can tell you're getting a little bit more drunk because you're getting louder.
Well, because I'm irritable. Golly, he just does this to me.
What were you saying about lunar recession?
I'm saying it's going to be lunar recession. We're going to get probably
all the
potentially
classics.
Erosion rates. We're going to get the classics. This is a greatest hits, but man, dude, the salinity thing is very, very low hanging fruit and very evidently coming from his dad. Because Kent still repeats the salinity thing, even though that is and I can't stress this enough. This is a big issue. That's refuted on the Talk Origins blog, which hasn't been updated since like 2010.
Has it been that recent? I didn't think it was even that recent.
Feel concerned.
Oh, Silver Harlow for $5 says, oh my goodness, now you're making me write IPA. Okay.
That's a bummer, Dapper. I don't even know what's going on
Okay.
here.
Sorites. There. Now that's a thing that you know for now. Yeah, I'm gonna forget that. But it's good to know that it's Sorites. Wait, are you sure it's a schwa if that's the actual if the first syllable is the one with the primary stress and that's where we're actually putting the schwa? Because primary stress schwa is very rare. But I mean, I guess I can't say it doesn't happen. But thank you for the IPA. Now I have a better idea of how to pronounce Sorites. So there you go. Now, if I can only remember how it was spelled in the first place, I could connect those two things in my brain. But Erika, we got to get you up to speed on the IPA. It's very useful. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what that first little thing is between the little slashes in the super chat, if you're looking. So the International Phonetic Alphabet, for those of you who might not know, is a standard used by linguists that can transcribe any utterance in any known language with about any degree of precision you would like. So it's very handy because it unambiguously describes the sounds that humans make when speaking. Doesn't matter what their native alphabet is like or whether they use like ideograms or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you know the IPA, you can pronounce that language. Here we go.
Saltier. I live here by the Gulf of Mexico. It's getting saltier and saltier.
No, it's not, Eric. It's not getting saltier and saltier because salts leave the ocean. There's this thing called subduction. And there are also various other processes, but yeah, we know that salts leave the ocean. You know how we know this? It's because Eric's talking about the accumulation time, where how much salt washes into the ocean per unit time, how much salt is there, therefore how long would it take to go from a completely freshwater ocean to an ocean at this level. There are aluminum salts that would only take 500 years to accumulate to the current level. So unless Eric is going to argue that the Earth began in the year 1500, this is stupid. And the reason I know that is because it's in the book Young Earth Creationism by Henry Morris, and it's the page I have bookmarked in my personal copy because it includes a table of accumulation times for various salts, and when it gets to aluminum salts, it says 500 years, which no one is arguing for. Not even Eric. Eric is a young Earth creationist, but he's not that young of a young Earth creationist.
Remember, Dapper, it's all closed systems all the time, exclusively. This is, of course, why the second law of thermodynamics prevents evolution from occurring.
Oh, and also Silver Harlow just gave me the Greek spelling, although I feel like the sigma should be capitalized there, Silver Harlow. Come on. Because I'm pretty sure it's a proper noun, but whatever. So thank you for the Sorites. All right. Yes, Sorites. So wait a minute. How come the accent is on the second syllable in Greek, but on the first syllable in English? Silver. Come on.
Ooh.
What's up with that? All right, here we go.
Well, that's fine if the world is only about 6,000 years old and God flooded the world about 4,400 years ago.
No, it's
But
not.
you want me to believe that the Earth formed 4.6 billion years ago? Anybody should be able to go to the beach with me right here and pull a Jesus and walk on water. I've been to the Dead Sea. You can
What?
float in that thing. In 4.6 billion years, you should be able to walk on any of the oceans on planet Earth.
But Eric, okay, look. You notice he didn't actually give us any accumulation times for any of these things?
Of course he didn't. Of course he didn't.
Because some of them end up in historical timeframes. Because again, there are mechanisms for removing salt from the ocean, guys.
This is the same thing that they do with things like taking the lower end estimate for like mitochondrial Eve, like when they do estimates for that, and it's like, oh yeah, it could have lived, within the past million year or as recently as 800 years in the future or something insane along like that. But because it includes 6,000 years, then it can be utilized for young Earth creationism. That is not how this works. Right? You don't need to make a case that your time frame is possible. You need to make a case that your time frame is probable, right? And that's not even working within the argument that they're using right now, that Eric is using on us right now. Because as Dapper pointed out, if we're using salinity influx rates that Eric requires to exclude evolutionary theory and deep time, it's also excluding 6,000-year-old Earth too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's coming up with like, I guess the Earth is only a few centuries old. Also, for $5
Earth
from
is 600 years old.
yeah,
Is the woke
that's the real young Earth creationism. I'm gonna start with that one.
broke 6,000 years old, woke 600 years old.
All right. Guptu3 says the accent isn't on the first syllable in the English. You misread the IPA. All right. I'm going to re-enter the IPA in chat. And Guptu3, I want you to tell me what the tick above the line after the schwa is, if it's not a primary stress marker. Because maybe my IPA is completely off, and like I just forgot how stress markers work. But I'm pretty sure that the tick above the line after a vowel is a primary stress marker. So let me know. Maybe I'm wrong. Because, look, man, there's been vodka. There's been Eric Hovind, and you guys are trying to make me read like upside down E's and R's. Silver Harlow says, more likely I miscopied the IPA, Guptu 3. Here, let's have a discussion in money for text. I'm sure he won't mind. No, I won't. Because, like I said, I had to pay $80 just to get a damn birth certificate. It's been a rough week. Also, I spent like 2 hours today trying to figure out why my blender scene wasn't working. It turns out it's just because I put a subdivision modifier in the wrong place. I should have moved it up one in the stack, and I spent way too long trying to figure that one out. So here
I love when a complex problem has a simple solution that you could have seen right off the bat if
Oh,
you
yeah.
weren't like tired or hungry or some other
And the thing is, in retrospect,
external stressor.
other weird things were happening as a result of that fact, and I didn't catch that's what was happening, even though I should have, because I know better. So here's more Eric, because this is how I'm gonna cap off this crazy day and this crazy week. Gupti3 says, doesn't the stress marker go before the stress syllable? I don't think so, but I would have to double check with like the IPA manual. So I don't think so, but don't quote me on that. You might be right. In which case, I do think it would be that Silver Harlow would have misused the stress marker, but I still think he was indicating the stress was on the first syllable. So I don't know. Anyway, here we go.
Comets, we got comets in our solar system. The short period comets only last
goodness.
10,000 years.
This is an Oort cloud argument.
Yeah.
That also makes me want to throw myself into traffic.
I'm just gonna drink. We're gonna continue on with hearing about it, but it's gonna be stupid. I'm just preemptively drinking.
Why do we have comets? Why are they still coming through? Why are we still seeing them if they're blown apart within 10,000 years? We shouldn't see any comets anymore.
Eric, what do you mean? Do you think there's only a set amount of comets in the entire freaking universe, and they're limited to the solar system of their origin for
Well,
to start off the bat?
Here's
Second
one.
of all, we have a comet generating Oort cloud here within our own solar system.
Yeah, so the main idea behind the Oort cloud and how we use that to get short period comets is one, short period comets, there's this thing called aphelion, which is the point in your orbit when you're farthest from the sun, if you're orbiting the sun, right? If you're not orbiting the sun, then you don't have an aphelion, you have something else. Anyway, the general term is apoapsis, but aphelion is for things orbiting the sun. And statistically, comets tend to cluster at a certain value for the aphelion, which seems to indicate they probably originate from a certain distance away. And the thing is, when you have interactions gravitationally with a bunch of things that are all orbiting in more or less the same direction, which is the case for the solar system as a result of the conservation of angular momentum, virtually everything in the solar system orbits the same way around. Guptu3 says that he looked it up and it's before Dapper. All right, well, in that case, I'm still saying Silver Harlow put it in the wrong spot, and then I forgot that was the wrong spot. But I still think he was attempting to indicate stress on the first syllable. So, Silver Harlow, feel free to clarify. Anyway, any random interaction in that kind of system is more likely to lower the perihelion, which is the spot where you're closest to the sun, than it is to raise your aphelion. Now, that's for complicated statistical reasons, but that's just how it is. Random interactions between different bodies in the system like that are more likely to result in one body being kicked significantly lower and the other one being raised only minimally. So, what this means is that as relatively chaotic orbits happen throughout the Oort cloud, occasionally you will end up with some of them being kicked into lower orbits, and a lower number, ending up on escape orbits that just leave the solar system and go off into, intergalactic space, maybe to later interact with some other star or black hole or who knows.
Well, and to note too, Robert Madewell, says in the comments that short period comets tend to come from the Kuiper Belt
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
rather than the Oort cloud. That
Okay.
was my fault. I proposed the Oort cloud first, and I think Dapper just ran with it.
Yeah.
Astronomy is not,
Drink.
definitely not my strong suit. I know comets
from Mothra.
can come from the Oort cloud.
Yeah, that's
So I
true.
kind of just went with
I
it.
was going
Thank
with
you,
it.
Robert, for correcting me on that one. Now I will know it forever, and I will never, ever forget it again.
Fortunately, the orbital
Steel
mechanics
strap.
work about the same way for both the Oort cloud and the Kuiper belt. So if you have random interactions, which are actually more likely in the Kuiper belt because it's closer, and therefore those orbits happen much, much faster.
Side note, explain to me the difference why it's spelled like Kuiper belt, but it's pronounced Kuiper belt.
Because it's not English. That's all I got for you.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I think it's like it's one of those Germanic languages from like Northern Europe where the spelling is all very confusing, especially with vowels.
Kuiper belt. I feel like I have definitely heard Kuiper belt, and I'm just too dumb to have connected it to the spelling of Kuiper belt, the proper spelling of Kuiper belt.
If
I
you're
feel like
native,
I've seen enough Cosmos to know that.
Well, if your native language is English, there's no reason you would think it would be spelled that way.
I'm also less educated in astronomy than I probably could be. I could stand to brush up.
Okay, so
And Landon Knoll says some comets come from interstellar space, which
There you go.
is also true. That I did know. Sorry, Landon.
And the Venerable Bead says it was Dutch pronunciation, and Silver Harlow says that he did in fact put he meant to indicate that the second syllable was accented, and he misplaced the accent mark. So now we have that all figured out. So it's Sorites. Because he made a mistake on where to put that little primary stress marker. All right, well, now that we have that all figured out, and Landon Knoll says, we have detected comets that came from outside of our solar system. Which, by the way, Landon Knoll does astronomy stuff, like, professionally. He also does volcanology stuff professionally, and finds new prime numbers for funsies, and also helped write some of the code that we're using right now to use the internet in the first place.
Volcanology. I like
Yeah.
that.
Landon wears a number of different hats, and all of them are like genius hats. He's got like 4 different genius hats going. So
Can't relate.
Vandalian 1998 for $4.99 says, "What Erika? They don't focus on comets and meteors in your primatology class."
Yeah, unfortunately, while I can tell you the intricacies of the vervet monkey social systems and social structures and mating systems, as well as mating structures and hierarchies along linear dominance lines, I cannot tell you very much about comets and meteors, other than that we use them to approximate the age of the solar system and thus proto-Earth to the age of the Earth. Saying
Well,
radiometric dating.
I think it's time that we introduce more primatologists to astronomy concepts. But no, we probably shouldn't do that. We should probably let everyone get on with their specializations.
Yeah, unfortunately, the introducing comets and meteors to studying Chlorocebus aethiops is going to be a tough sell.
I wonder why. All right.
This is me flexing to let all of you know that I'm not an idiot. I'm just an idiot in astronomy.
All right, here we go.
In 4.6 billion years. Anyway, we could go on and on and on. The evidence that the scripture is true from science is overwhelming.
I mean, you haven't given any, but okay, Eric.
They just
Damn,
don't.
can't relate. Why hasn't anybody told the scientific community about this?
Turns out they have, and they've been laughed out of the room because basically everything Eric just said was nonsense. Weird, right?
Wait a second. You cannot seriously be telling me, Dapper, that you can't bring arguments from the 1970s to the table in 2022. You can't be seriously telling me that.
I'll say this: you can bring arguments from the 1970s to the table if they weren't debunked in the 1970s.
I think, if memory serves, I think some of the creationist arguments from like Whitcomb and Morris were beat to death
Oh yeah,
before they even made the arguments, right? Like some of
Yeah.
these arguments that they're making, are rooted in, for instance, okay, they make arguments that are defied by like the dynamo effect, right?
Or-
It's Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just say, for $10, Ernie Matthews says, "Great to see Erika and Dapper demolishing this dolt. Please continue." Well, Ernie, the intention is to basically continue more or less indefinitely, about once a month or so. So there you go.
Yeah, we do this once a month. It's very bad for my health. My general practitioner told me that the ulcers are getting out of hand.
Your liver must be gigantic at this point.
My liver is very powerful, but that's for extracurricular reasons. It turns out Eric is not my only reason to drink.
Oh no.
The stresses of academia do that just fine.
Yeah. All right, more Eric?
Oh yeah.
Want to focus on it. They don't want to focus on all these things that show, no, the universe is actually young. It's not old. And we
Wait,
could go
the
on.
universe is young? Andrew Snelling doesn't even argue that.
I'm gonna take a drink. Literally everything that Eric said would at best get us to a young solar system if it were true. That has nothing to do with anything outside the solar system. So even if we just say, just for the sake of argument, you know what, Eric, you're right. The existence of short period comets preclude a solar system more than 10,000 years old. That says literally nothing about anything outside of our solar system. And spoiler alerts, that's most of the universe. So
yeah,
like
I mean, even then, the comet thing is solved by sources like the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud. But unfortunately, there is no current solution to things like the consistent radiometric dates that we get from meteorites that hit Earth of being, 4.5 to 4.8 billion years old for the age of the Earth. Nor does it solve greater issues like the heat problem, like radioactive decay producing enough heat at minimum to vaporize the granitic crust of the Earth a dozen or 24 times over, and at maximum being equivalent to 5,000 trillion 1 megaton H bombs. This is stuff that you straight up have to break physics for, right? A lot of the things that Eric is talking about is the solution to which is just understanding basic geology in the case of salinity. Like, wow, it turns out you can actually introduce and remove salt from global oceans. Wow,
Weird.
it turns out that you can actually get comets from places within the solar system.
and without.
And outside of the solar system, right? These are things that do not actively preclude conventional science in a secular age. Right? But the things that Eric is talking about, like a 6,000-year-old Earth, is actively precluded, I would hazard a guess, by every single field of science, except perhaps, as Dapper and I have mentioned before, optics.
Yep.
And even then,
That's the only one we've come up with, and we're not sure about it.
We just haven't given it enough thought.
Right.
I mean,
maybe
Pick-
eventually
you
we'll
know-
figure out why optics precludes a young Earth.
yeah, pick your poison, because the conventional science community has plenty of answers and plenty of data to back up those answers for things like how does salinity get removed from the ocean? How do we get new comets? Things of this nature. But I've yet to hear a creationist solution to things like heat problem, or how do we get the coral atolls that we have.
No, Erica, I've heard a creationist solution to the heat problem. It's that
Well,
if there were a heat problem, we would see more evidence of metamorphism in all the rocks, but we don't, so therefore there isn't a heat problem.
yeah.
Which basically is,
the thing is,
because reality matches your prediction and not mine, mine is correct.
yeah, the thing about that as an answer is that is just so brain dead in absolutely every possible most generous interpretation of it that I have to assume that that's just a joke. It's got to be a gag.
Well, let's see what else Eric has for us, because we're getting actually pretty close to the end of this video, which means if we can get through a bit more of it, it might actually be the case that next time we do this, we actually end up getting to split it between two different videos.
It'll never happen.
It will happen eventually, Erica. You have to believe.
I don't.
By the way, I'm seeing about 20 people as having not hit like on the video, so I would really appreciate it if those 20 of you could find it in your... Oh, take a drink for Mothra. If you 20 or so could find it in your presumably cold, dead atheist hearts, because of course, if you're an anti-creationist, you had to be an atheist. To hit like.
This much is true. Yeah, this much is true. If you accept evolution, you're an atheist, because the only
100%.
two possible options are atheistic naturalism or young Earth creationism.
It's not like
That's
literally half of my regular co-hosts are Christians. That's definitely not the case.
I'm sorry, Dapper. Look, I really feel bad that reality matches with your prediction, but I'm actually right.
All right, here we go.
On about that.
Yeah, that's so that segues well into my next question for you, because if all these evidences exist through mathematics and science and things, how come when I go to a museum or in my science textbook at school, it seems as if there's only one true scientific position, and that is that the universe is billions of years old and that we've evolved from monkeys? Why isn't it talked about more? Why isn't this viewpoint, why doesn't it have any sort of pedestal anywhere?
The minute Eric goes to conspiracy theory, I'm taking a drink.
I know, I was thinking the same thing. There is no out for this section other than to just say it's a conspiracy.
Yep. That's why people have asked me before, like, hey, is young Earth creationism a conspiracy theory? And I go with, like, I think it is if you think about it enough, but I don't think everyone does think about it enough. So I know a lot of young Earth creationists who aren't conspiracy theorists, but I also know plenty who are, and ultimately it leads to that if you bring it to its logical conclusion. I just think that the average YEC, like just random churchgoer, doesn't bother to do that.
No, I think it boils down to their level of being informed, right? If you have been exposed to the mass of literature that supports the ancient age of the Earth stretching back to Charles Lyell, right? Then and you still maintain the young Earth position, then you almost have to take a conspiratorial stance, right? Like otherwise, what our immaculate host here is saying is true. How come this viewpoint isn't on a pedestal anywhere except in rural churches in the United States? Why is that the case? Why do so many Christians accept conventional science? Why does the secular world accept conventional science? And most importantly, why do no non-young Earth creationists who are bound to that by an evangelical interpretation of the Christian Bible come to the conclusion rather that the Earth is 6,000 years old? Why is it a prerequisite, seemingly, that you have to have a specific Abrahamic religious interpretation of either the Bible or the Quran in order to come to the conclusion that the Earth is young? Why does nobody secular come to that conclusion?
Oh, also, fun fact, we're about $40 away from chat paying for my birth certificate extortion. So, thanks, guys.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Because here's a fun fact. In the United States, if you don't have a birth certificate every once in a while, they might just decide that you're not a real person.
Oh, blower.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just get unpersoned if you don't have enough money to maintain your personhood, which is always fun.
What are they saying, like you're dead or something? What's the deal there?
No, it was basically like, hey, your ID might expire, and if we don't have the birth certificate, you just can't get a new one. And if you don't have a valid ID, even getting the birth certificate, that will be a problem. And then it's just like, okay, well, so I have to toss you a whole bunch of money, or I basically just cease to exist.
You love to see it.
Thanks.
This is a perfect opportunity to fake your death and go off the grid, Dapper. I don't know why you're squandering it like this.
That's a good point. Probably because
Foolish.
I would like to be able to continue to drive legally when necessary.
Yeah.
That's a
But
part of it.
consider illegal driving.
Yeah, and to be fair, I've only ever been pulled over like twice in my entire life, so like I could probably get away with
That's
it for
less
quite a
than-
while.
That's less than me.
Well, there you go. I'm a
Fun-
fairly conservative driver.
A fun Gutsy Gibbon fact. I am neither a very good driver nor am I very good at not getting parking tickets. And I've
Ooh.
resolved to pin that on the fact that I am, of course, hylobated. I'm too small. My feet can't reach the pedals.
Goodness.
I'm just a gibbon.
All right, here we go.
Well, if you want me to get right to the nitty gritty of it, here's the answer. Romans
Hit me with it.
chapter 1 makes it
Scoffer's
incredibly,
gonna scoff.
incredibly clear.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, that's Second Peter, isn't it?
Romans chapter 1, you can get this in verses.
I think it's gonna be they made themselves willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood or whatever.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the Romans one. I jumped the gun with Scoffer's gonna scoff because that's a classic AIG. I was forgetting that we were dealing with a Hovind.
18, 16, really through 21. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men,
Oh, I guess not. Maybe.
Who, and here it is,
Oh, okay.
suppress the truth
Mm-hmm.
in unrighteousness.
Okay.
In order to suppress the truth, you have to have.
Yeah, it's just a conspiracy theory. I'm drinking for conspiracy theory.
Well, I mean, what
there-
it kind of
it's-
feels like is that it's not just any old conspiracy theory. It's like a cosmic conspiracy theory, which is, I mean, that's kind of a step up. It's
And-
like even more conspiratorial. Like,
Oh yeah. It's
like the forces of darkness are in on it.
they're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. So hold on. Michael Apple for $20 sends a blank super chat with no message. Thank you very much, Michael Apple. I really appreciate it. And going back to it, it's like, so basically there's only one answer as to what science says in the textbooks and, like, you know, actual scientific journals and encyclopedias and text in schools and in peer-reviewed journals. Not because it's true, not because that's where the evidence points, but basically because scientists are comic book villains is what this comes down to, because they're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness, and they're probably, like, hanging out inside of a volcano and, like, you know, laughing maniacally at their antics of suppressing the truth in unrighteousness, just for some reason.
This is the classic conventional science is a part of a Gothic castle sitting around a long table, cabal of science evil
Yeah.
that these guys absolutely have to invoke. And of course, the most ironic part of it being that at least half of the scientists sitting on that table on the board of extraordinary evil and the board of killers of young Earth creationism, preventing them from being published, which are of course stationed at every major journal and lesser journal. But they're Christians. At least half of them are.
Yeah, a large number, or a large proportion of scientists, not as much as the general public, to be fair, but, like, there's a lot of Christians in science, like academic science, like, who are publishing papers, who are doing peer review.
Yeah, you're right. It's less so in fields like biology and adjacent forms of study, but I guess I was thinking scientists in general, and I was applying the general populace to it. So let's just say instead of half, let's say a portion. So what? They're in on it? What are they? Agents? Double agents, right?
Maybe they're triple agents.
Oh no, they're gonna get us in the end.
And by the way,
Conventional science enjoyers beware.
Regios for $20 says, just in case you want to maintain documentation that you exist. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And because of your generosity, guys, next time I buy booze, I will not buy the $9.99 handle of vodka. I'll step it up a little bit.
That won't stop me from buying the cheapest cab in the store.
And for $4.99, Kenny Hornrickson, there we go, says, question for both of you. Did you know that NASA uses vaccines to brainwash people into believing the Globe Earth religion? I'm just going to take a drink because that's hilarious. No, I didn't know that because that's impossible to know.
Yeah, this is actually false, Kenny, because the vaccine is actually... It's actually paired with an inhalant, which you have to take as well, that also forces people to believe in the space monkey religion of evolution. So really, the two combine into, as I was once told by Nathan Thompson in a debate, the globehead space monkey council of religious doctrine or something along those lines. It was something absolutely...
How do I get membership in this body?
Dude, it was long-winded and also bonkers because it was coming from Nathan Thompson. But the long story short is that, unfortunately for people like Eric Hovind, the conspiracy goes much deeper than just brainwashing the general public into believing the space monkey religion of evolution. But Eric himself is also duped because it goes hand in hand with the globehead religion.
Now, to be fair,
which is actually the enemy of creation.
Technically, the only species to intentionally go into space are monkeys. So, I mean...
No, this is true. This is true.
Virtually all animals in space are monkeys.
And a lot of the heads tend to be quite round. So one could argue that there are globehead space monkeys.
In fact, actually, if I remember correctly, it's basically humans and dogs, and very few dogs who've ever been to space, and that's pretty much it. And, well, I guess some other monkeys. There's been a couple chimps, I guess.
There's Leica, and there was a squirrel monkey also. up there.
So it's almost all monkeys in terms of space traveling animals.
Yeah, it's a lot of monkeys. It's a lot of
Okay.
catarrhines.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Actually, I'm such an idiot. It's a lot of anthropoids because I'm pretty sure that I think her name was Mrs. something. I'll look it up. No. Tim Nichols. I was saying Leica was a dog in reference to
Right.
what Dapper was mentioning.
Yeah, 'cause
Leica is a
we've had-
dog. A lot of the others are monkeys, though. It's like I keep wanting to say Mavis Beacon, like Mavis Beacon teaches typing, but that is not the name of the monkey.
That
It's like
doesn't
Miss
sound right.
Beatrice. Yeah, it's like Miss Beatrice or something like that, and she was actually a squirrel monkey. So Sainiri genus, which is a platyrrhine. So technically, it's not catarrhine monkeys, but anthropoid monkeys.
There you go. Virtually every animal in space that isn't microscopic has been a
Yep.
monkey.
Robert Adsett says mice as well.
All right. Oh, yeah, I guess there has been some mice. All right. Our Contigliers, or you are Contigliers. For $2, Josiah Hansen says, AIG is an enchanted wizard wand with a +5 STT boost. I'll take a drink for that.
It was Miss Baker, for those wondering.
Ah, okay. Kenny Hornickson says, I made a video where a globe head admits the globe is a religion. Go watch it. I honestly could not possibly care less about that video. You have not enticed me at all.
I will not address or interact with flat earthers. Flat earthers don't interact. Flat earth fans, members of the flat earth fandom, don't come in my general vicinity. I have no desire to interact with flat earthers after my Nathan Thompson experience.
I mean, look, if Kenny wants to like continue to toss money at me, I'll continue to read it as long as it's not like, hateful or something. But like, dude, you've been in the chat for months now, and you have literally never made a point that wasn't either completely inane or just a lie. So like, you telling me that you have a video where some guy admits that something or other is a religion means like just so little to me. I just don't care.
Wait, was Kenny not joking? Is Kenny a real flat earther?
Yeah, well, unless he's a Poe, but you can't tell the difference.
Well, that's true. Okay, Kenny. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your quest of truth.
By the way, we're once again at the point where almost 20 people haven't hit like. We're gonna hit play on this one.
The truth. You ever been in a swimming pool and tried to push the ball underwater, the little
Yes.
beach ball underwater, and hold it down there? Well, as soon as you let it go,
Drink for unrelated analogy.
Yeah.
it's going to come shooting up. The only way to keep it down is if you suppress it, if you push it down. And it says that these people, the unbelievers, are going to suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Why do they suppress the truth? Unrighteousness.
Is this do we get to drink for you only believe in evolution because you're horny? Because that's a common Kent Hovind tactic. I'm not sure we're getting there yet. Maybe though.
Yes, but how does this God, like, just this is theistic evolutionist erasure as usual.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Is like there are so many believing, practicing Christians who aren't doing anything with like their lifestyle or whatever that Eric would think of as sinful or unrighteous. And I mean, you think they're lying to you? Like, what does Eric think Mary Schweitzer is doing when she's doing completely conventional, actual science that falls in line with evolution according to her?
Schweitzer's a plant, clearly.
Yeah. Or
as is Ken Miller. But I guess Ken Miller, isn't Ken Miller like Catholic, so he doesn't even count? Like a lot of evangelicals like Eric would think that the Catholics do not count.
Catholics, not real Christians, because
they're not real Christians.
One fun thing is to look up the number of different groups that have been declared to not be Christians by other Christians, and if you were to take all those declarations seriously, there would just be no Christians left. It's kind of a thing.
Yeah, this is a point of concern. This is why the Christians who are chill are the ones who are like minding their business, and they're like, "Hey man, like I'm believing what I believe, and this is my faith, and you do your thing." I've actually never once had an issue with Christians like that.
Yeah.
We get along just swimmingly.
Well, it turns out most Christians aren't dishonest jerks like the Hovinds. Although Eric is much less of a jerk than his father.
And I honestly do think Eric is less dishonest. I think Eric has a much higher frequency of just being ignorant to the truth.
That could be. All right. We're gonna get a little bit more in, but we're probably on our last like little bit of getting some Eric Hovind, and then we're gonna do some wrap up stuff. So
Now, some people won't like hearing me say this, but I'm telling you, I've talked to a lot of atheists, a lot of secularists. The reason people reject God and the reason people reject Scripture is never because of science.
I'm just going to take a drink.
Cool.
Because I've talked to a lot of people for whom that was the reason why they rejected at least Eric's version of what Scripture says. So that's just dumb.
Dude, he's got such a weenie route around for this too. Like, his answer is the reason more people don't accept young Earth creationism is because of a big, fat, global conspiracy.
Mhm.
Cool. Okay.
Why else
all
would
right.
you?
Then why does nobody come to evangelical Christianity, Eric's version, by going to the science and finding out the Earth is young?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how often do we go atheism to young Earth creationism? Truly.
I mean, I guess I can't say it's never happened because I do think of
I can't either, but I can't think of an example. Usually it's like a more progressive version of Christianity to YEC. And even then I'm curious, to say the least.
So let's do some wrap up stuff. So Erika, what do you got coming up? What should people be aware of?
Oh boy. I've got a great release schedule right now. If I do say so myself, I'm killing it. I got new movies new videos, sometimes movie length. The reason I said it's movie length is because next Wednesday, I'm releasing my coverage of Monster, the Frank Peretti young Earth creationist, or rather
Ooh.
ambiguous creationist. We don't know if he's ID or YEC. Bigfoot anti-evolution novel, which is absolutely incredible. This Wednesday, I have a video, Another Library of Error, coming out on Friday. I think I'm releasing an FAQ, which it's basically just frequently asked questions that I keep getting emails about that I just want to answer.
Okay.
And most of them are, what's your interest song? Which is The Mind Electric by Miracle Musical. So
There you go.
mostly that kind of stuff. Pretty much it.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to take a look at the calendar here so I don't get things wrong. So, unless I get a whole lot more done tomorrow than I think I will, Thursday will probably be the first video in a new series. It will be about Dan Biddle, who is, of course,
Gross.
the mind behind Genesis Apologetics. He gave a talk called The 10 Pillars of Evolution. And in a 3-part series, I'm going to go through that talk, and it's bad. It's really, really bad. Saturday is the award show where we reveal the winners of the Creationist Bunny Awards. So I'm not exactly sure who's going to be there for the panel. I'm going to be inviting a whole bunch of people. Erika, you're invited. You don't have to come. There you go. But yeah, if you want to vote, you can go find my previous Cambrian Bunny nominations video, and you can see who was nominated, why they were nominated, as well as get links to the videos that you can go like in order to vote. So voting will close sometime on Saturday. I'm not exactly sure when, because again, it doesn't matter. It's all just for fun. But we have categories for worst creationist argument, worst behaved creationist, worst use of the English language by a creationist, as well as best overall creationist. Now, I know what all of you are thinking. Sal's probably going to win. But he wasn't nominated primarily because he got the top spot in our YouTube creationist tier list. So we felt it would be unfair to not let other people have a shot. So
We do love Sal around here.
Yeah.
Sal shows up every now and again. I have never once had a bad experience with Sal.
no. In fact,
Me
actually,
and Sal go way back too. Reddit days.
Sal decided to go live about halfway through this with a video addressed to me. So I kind of feel bad about that because I feel like I should have been there. But like, guys, this is my regular upload schedule. I'm not going to interrupt it for that. But anyway,
Drop in after this. Just
I will.
say hey.
I will. So then Tuesday, the 15th, should be a Matt with Maddie, and we will be looking at a raw Matt video because we finished our Matt Powell video. So wish me luck for that one, because if you think Eric is bad, oof.
I really I don't even know how you guys muddle through Matt Powell.
You
material.
can join
Matt
us
Powell-
sometime if you want to.
I listen, Dapper, I love being on the channel. Love you guys. Love you. Love Maddie. I don't think there's a reason I've never covered Matt Powell.
Yeah, it's bad.
Matt Powell makes me stupider.
But we're switching to Raw Matt.
But Raw Matt is bad. I don't know that Raw Matt, it's close. But I don't know that at least Raw Matt is funny. I guess that's what I'll say.
Yeah,
Raw Matt makes me laugh. Matt Powell is boring and an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that's really, really mean to say. I don't use the term lightly.
Yeah.
I do think that Matt Powell has some kind of issue going on, right?
Yeah.
He's just been corrected on things so many times, and you got a lot of creationists out there. He uses the arguments that AIG says not to use. I mean, that's...
Well, I mean, that's why he moved in with Daddy Kent, right?
Yeah, that's why he's with Papa Kent. That's exactly why.
All right. So Thursday the 17th should be the next Speculative Evolution video. I know that it's been on like hiatus for like 3 months. There's a whole lot of reasons for that. One of them being that like the views just aren't staying up, and it takes way longer to make one of those videos than most things. Also, for $5, the Sun Express says any YEC Institute is a flexible intermediate bulk container FIBC of courgettes. All right, we'll take a drink. Thank you, guys. You did, in fact, at this point, pay for my "Do you exist as a person in this country" extortion, so I appreciate that. Andrew Muliar says, Erika, Dapper Dinosaur, thank you for all you do, all you're doing to, or I think for humanity. You're welcome, man. We both love doing this stuff, and sure, it makes us go crazy a little bit, but like, I love chat. I love hanging out with you guys. I love picking apart ridiculous nonsense that some people take seriously for some reason. So, I mean, thank you guys for being here, because honestly, without you guys, I wouldn't be here doing this. If no one ever came, I wouldn't keep doing it. I would be back to the point, back before I had a YouTube channel, where every once in a while, me and Benthoven would just watch like a Kenthoven debater video, and we would make fun of it by ourselves in like Discord. So, which is how, by the way, this whole thing started. But anyway, with that, I think we're going to leave you guys. Please have a safe and wonderful rest of the week. I hope I see all of you on Thursday for my premiere. And also, I hope that you all go and watch Erika's next premiere, which, Erika, do you know what day it's coming out?
Yeah, I got a premiere on Wednesday, and then I got another one on Friday.
So tomorrow.
Like I said, I got stuff coming out like gangbusters right now. It's intense.
So this is tomorrow, then?
Yes.
So tomorrow, guys, go check out Erika's channel for her next premiere. All right.
Come hang out. I've been good about being in chat.
Yes, she has. She did not start that way.
No.
Improvements.
I kept forgetting when my videos premiere.
All right. Bye, everybody. I just want to take a minute to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Benthoven, David5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Chris Love, Landon Noel, Lingwei, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Veed, and Patrick Dennis. The people whose names you see on screen right now are a big part of keeping the lights on here at Casa Dino, and without them, this channel really wouldn't exist in the form that it does now. If you'd like to join this awesome team, there are links down in the description to join the channel or to join my Patreon. It starts at only $1 on Patreon or $1.99 here on YouTube. There's also a convenient join button right below this video if you want to join as a member on YouTube. Joining lets you see most of my videos early, in some cases more than a month early. Also, you can join an exclusive member and patron-only Discord server, which has a pretty direct line to me. And as you go up in tier, you get more and more benefits, including getting your name on this list. If a monthly subscription isn't really for you, but you still like to help out the channel, there's a merch store linked in the description. It has t-shirts, it has baby onesies, it has mugs, it has blankets, anything you want, Dapper Dino branded. And if none of that seems right for you, please just like and share my videos and subscribe to the channel. That helps immensely. Thank you very much.